Okay, so last time we were working on the lesson, we looked at the mod function. So all I'm going to do is save what I've worked on and close it down. Hopefully you've been doing that as you've been going along. Now I'm going to go to File and I'm going to look for the times table square and I'm going to open that. So what we're going to do is pull everything together and finalize this timetable square. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to move everything around a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 rows and I'm going to insert 3 new rows along the top. Doesn't matter if it drops off the bottom, that's not a problem. Then I'm going to choose 3 columns and do the same thing there. So now what I can do is, what I want to do is build a new part here. So what I'm going to allow the user to do is enter a number, and that's going to change the number here. I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to use a box. So just using there and simply say outside, or I could have said all, and same thing I'm going to do there. And whatever's put into this box is going to appear here. And same thing, whatever I put in here will appear here. So let's just start that off. I'm going to put a 1 in there. Now obviously I want that to be like that, centered, and size 16. Just check that's what I've used before. I've used size 16. The only difference is I haven't used bold. So I'm going to use that. Now what I can do is I can use this tool here called the Format Painter. Just click on that and click in that box, and now if I put a 1 in that box, that format's automatically copied across. So this Format Painter is really useful, and we will redo that in a later lesson. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cell and say equals there. Now if you remember, I said there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with using a formula to look at the cell and just grab that cell. That's what we've done. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say equals that. So all it means is if I change this, the number there will change, but so will all those. And if I change this, that number will change, and so will all those. So that's really nice. But let's put that back for the moment. Let's then use that insert symbol, and let's use the time symbol in there. Again, I want to make sure that that is centered, and all I'm going to do actually is take that. Now I've got to be careful because it's got a border and I don't want the border, so let's not do that. Border, size 16 and bold. I'm going to put another box here. That box can be like this one, so use the Format Painter to click there. Similarly, I'm going to copy that, so right click, copy, go to there, right click, paste, and there it is. Then all I'm going to do is put a box and tell it to format paint into that box there. So what's the point of this second box? Well, this is the multiplier, and it might be a bit confusing, this symbol, so it might be not the best thing to have used, but we'll have a look at that. What I'm going to do is this is going to be the stepper for all the following numbers. So if I put a number in there, it's going to simply step these up by the value here. So this value here is going to be equal to the previous value plus the value in there. That means this cell is going to be this one plus the value in there. In fact, if I do that, that's going to be what I'm looking for. Similarly here, this cell is going to be equal to that cell plus whatever's in there. And this cell is going to be nothing more than this one here. It's going to be nothing more than this cell plus there, which is the same formula. So I'm going to pull that one down to there. Now if I put 1 in there and 1 in there, I don't get what I wanted. Why not? Well, obviously when I did this, that moved, so the H changed to I. Of course, we're meant to use our absolute addressing. Now when I pull that across, now it works. Similarly here, that's looking at C8, but when I go to there, it's looking at C9. Oh, of course, I need to use the absolute addressing there, and then pull that down there. Now we're back to exactly where we were before, but now I can change this, and it will start at 2, or I can start it at 10, and then I can do it in multiples of 10. Well, there is a bit of an issue here in that this number becomes too big, so maybe I want to limit that. Maybe I want to make sure that you can't put larger values in there. This one here, I just need it to be a value, but again, if I put 100 in, that ruins everything. 99 ruins everything. So I need to find the ideal value that gets me to where I want to be. 20 still takes us too far. 15's fine. So I want to limit the numbers here, but again, I've got to recognize that the same thing will happen here. Another way around that, obviously, is to say, no, I'll tell you what, we'll do a 10 by 10, and we'll do a 10 by 10, and then all we've got to actually do is select the whole sheet and just decrease the font until it drops to a size we're happy with. Now that's taking it right down. Let's see, 12 works. 14 expands our cells, we don't want that, so 12 works. Let's just check what our cell widths are. They're 50 there, so they seem quite happy, but they're 51 there. So let's take them back to 50. Same thing here. Let's just check. There's no reason for those to have changed. They haven't. So everything's there. So we want these to be between 10 and 10. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new sheet, and I'm going to call that sheet data. And I'm just going to put the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'm not, because all I'm going to do is take the first 2 and take that down to 10. Why 10? Because we've now agreed that's going to be our limit here. And just to use things we've used before, what I'm going to do is go to the data validation and tell it to be a list. The source of that list is going to be here, and I'm going to choose that source of list there. By the way, you can just click on the column and it will choose the whole column, but then I'll have 1 million blank spaces. If I do that, it just restricts it to that set of data. So there you go, I've got that there. I might want to put an error message in. Incorrect value. You must ensure the number you enter is between 1 and 10. Okay, so now I've got that there, and my drop down works quite nicely. It knows I've got 10 in there, so it works. Can I put anything else in there? No, because it won't allow it, which is perfect. Only an item on the list. I'll do the same thing here. Data validation, go to settings, change that to list, same source, data, that list there. Go to the error message, incorrect value. Can't remember the message, but that's fine. Please enter a value between 1 and 10. Click OK, and again I've got a drop down here. Just for difference, we're going to use data validation rule here, but instead of using a list, we're just going to tell it it's got to be a whole number between 1 and 10. Error message, well, we won't bother, we've seen how to use that. We'll do there the same thing, settings, and set out an error, a whole number with 1 to 10. And again, we won't worry about an error message. If I was building this professionally, obviously I would be, but we're doing this to see how the system works. Now I've got the formatting here and everything else, but I want to tidy this up a little bit more. So what I'm going to do something that seems a bit, well, dangerous. I'm going to select the whole sheet, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do home and fill everything black. Now the reason why it's dangerous is because I can't see anything, but that's alright. I'm going to start at B2 and I'm going to take that down a bit, and I'm going to change that to white. The advantage of doing the whole sheet black is because now I have got the whole sheet as black. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the one nearest to the right hand side, the column nearest to the right hand side of my table, and I'm going to reduce that right down. So let's take it down to 10. Now what I'm then going to do is reduce this one by the same thing. Let's take it to 10. There. And finally the one on this edge I'm going to take to 10 as well. And just scroll down to the bottom, and when I said finally I was lying, because I've got to take this one to 10 as well. And that's really nice. I've got this really narrow one, this one's not so narrow, and this one I don't need to be white anymore, so let's just fill that with black so it's disappeared. I do need a new row, so I'm going to insert a new row. I don't need a new column at this stage, but what I'm going to do is with this Q column, the one that's still white, I'm going to go just above and I'm going to go just below. In fact, no, I'm just going to go from below to just below that edge there. And I'm going to choose a dark grey. That one's just a bit darker, that one. This one here I've left at the top becomes black. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run across the bottom here, and just before the really thin end stop, and again choose the same grey. Oops, it's going to be on that list there. I'm going to select from the top corner right down to the bottom of just the white part and choose thick outside border, and then I'm going to grab the Q and I'm going to make that really thin, not just 10 but go for 5 if I can. This becomes quite tricky, but we can do that. I'm going to do the same thing here and pull that up to there and get that to 5 as well. I can now reduce the added one that I had and make it a lot smaller, and I can do the same to this one, a little bit smaller, just to pull everything into line. Now I can go back and colour these as I want to where I want them to be. Okay, so now what I've got is I've got my edges and I've got the calculations here without any problems whatsoever. These are probably a bit wide, looks a little bit chunky, so I'm going to halve that down to 30, and this is where it fights you for a short while, and then that one down to 30. Okay, I'm now going to remove the protection on there. Now if you remember, I right click and I go to format cells and I remove the lock, and do the same thing in that one. Format cells, remove the lock, that cell, format cell, remove the lock, that one, format cell, remove the lock. What I might do with this background is now change it to the light yellow, change these to something that stands out against that. These could be very garish colours, but We'll see how they go. There you go, a nice dark green and a nice dark blue, and these become white to make it clear that that's where you can enter data. Now if I go to the second sheet, I can right click and hide the sheet. Now it's slightly harder to get the sheets back, but that's not a huge problem. I can right click and choose unhide, and it will show me all the hidden sheets. But we're not going to do that at this stage. What I am going to do for this moment is go to review, and actually not yet. You might be wondering where the mod comes in. Well, and the conditional formatting. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the values here. And what I'm going to tell the system to do is I'm going to go to Home and Conditional Formatting. I'm going to go to Manage Rules. I'm going to go to New Rule, and I'm going to select the bottom one. Use a formula to determine which cells to format. Now all I'm going to do is choose the active cell there initially. Use the active cell. It will apply, Excel will apply to all the other ones. F7. So all I'm going to do is if F7, if mod open brackets F7 comma 2 close brackets is equal to 0. If the value in F7 is divided by 0 divided by 2 returns a remainder of 0, then the number in F7 must be divisible by 2. That means that we are ending up with something that is always divisible by 2, what we call an even number. So if we do that, this will mean that we now know the number is even. So what I'm going to do is tell that to format, and let's tell the format background to be, let's choose that color for no other reason. And we're going to click OK, apply, and obviously all the numbers on there are. But if we, click OK, if we now click here and tell it to use the 1 step, and we do the same thing here, until the 1 step, we can already see we're getting the pattern that we're looking for. We don't need any other rule. We can see the odd numbers clearly against the even numbers. But we want to change the odd numbers. So let's now select that again. Let's now do the conditional formatting, go to Manage Rules, and we're going to add another new rule, and it's again going to use the formula. Equals, and it looks like the same formula, mod open brackets F7 comma 2 close brackets, but instead of equals to 0, it's just going to be any number other than 0, simply greater than 0, because any remainder will be any number bigger than 0. If I do that and choose a different format color, let's go for this. We want to be careful of the blue. Let's use this kind of orangey color, gold. Let's call it gold. If I apply that, we can now see that the gold doesn't stand out as much as we thought, but it's perfectly adequate. It gives us, and those are really bad colors, but it works for us. It shows us what we're looking for as we vary those numbers. So that mod function has allowed us to identify the even numbers. If I set a 2 there, then the pattern changes, and if I set a 2 there, then the pattern changes again, and they're all odd. And if I put a 4 there, they're all odd. What if I put a 3 there? We get that alternation. So it's a really nice thing we've got here. But obviously every time I type something or select something off this list, then I'm going to drop down. I can click anywhere and I can distort the sheet. So all I'm going to do now is go Review, Protect Sheet, say no, you cannot select lock cells, click OK, and now I can only use these cells. and if I try to enter anything outside the remit, I get an error message. And we start to get some nice patterns going through. So if we only use even numbers, we can see that, but every time we use some odd numbers, we finally start to get some odd numbers in, and you can play around with those and find what patterns arrive. So the times table square has allowed us to test out everything we've looked at to date, everything we've experimented with to date. That's been a lot thrown at you, but there's been a lot achieved in a short space of time. I do hope that's been really useful. We're going to try a new project and a new set of videos starting next. Take care. Bye.